Hello everyone and welcome back. Sometimes strange things happen. This time it happened to me. A friend knowing about my channel asked me to build a knife for his representation of the Mad Max Fury movie in a play in his city. My idea was to create a knife with a shell inside that represents a sort of last chance or special ammo for a survival in a post-apocalyptic world, totally imaginary like a Mad Max film. I start from a round bar of 25 mm and I make two conical sections, one in front and another in the other side. When I finish the first conical section in the front of the round bar, I make a cut and I start to make, as you can see, the other conical section, and I proceed from the left to right and not from right to left. And with the blue I control the diameter that was in the section between the two conical parts. So the beginning was to make this strange round bar with two conical sections. And after I go to the milling machine and make two planes. The first plane, that is the half thickness, and after I rotate the parts of my vise, and with my milling machine I make the second part of the blade thickness. It was a long process and also a lot of chips, as you can see in my table. And that tooth was only for aesthetic reasons. And I create two planes where to put the future guards. And the first step to making the blade was not bad. To create the place for the fingers, I start from a plane of aluminum, as you can see from the pictures, and I decided to use this plane to make a sort of guide that will be inserted in the round bar. In this case, the automatic feed is very useful. And after I put in place the part of aluminum, and to make this of my vise, I use my mechanist hammer. And using the blue, I found the points were drilled. I use different drill bits from 5 to 10 millimeters, and I use also a big hand mill to make the 14 millimeters diameter hole. And after I decided to cut the aluminium with my small hand mill. And to make this, I go up to a very high revolution per minute, as you can see for the pictures. With a minimum of patience, I proceed from right to left and I finish and cut the piece of aluminum that it will go to the round bar. And here I have drilled the holes for the seat of the M3 screw. I test the hole with the M3 screw. Was not bad, and so the part was finished. Therefore, I take a cutter from the spherical profile. This is for the blue drop, but obviously is only for aesthetic reasons. And so I turn the part on the vise and I make the same on the other side. Now the blade, side by side, is ready for grinding. But before I make the hole for sit the empty shell, and so I test also if the empty shell go inside free or not. I turn down a piece of aluminum to make the cap that close the handle of my blade. I test the diameter if it fits or not. The blade cuts the seat of the latch. And here I drill the hole for the pin of the latch. This M8 screw is to load the spring of the latch. I remake the center with the screw in the vise and I make a new hole because I tried to put the spring and the spring was not going inside, as you can see. And so with a bigger hole I have the possibility to insert the spring. And starting from a piece of paper I start to make the latch. It was very funny because I use my files to profile the latch. With small files, as you can see, you can make miracles. After this, I start to make the assembly of the cap. In this case, I put the spring, as you can see from the picture, and after I try to insert the pin in the hole of the latch. It was not very easy. But I found the right way, and also I test if the latch and the spring was strong or not to close the cap to the handle of my blade. I loaded the spring with the M8 screw and the result was very good. And this was the first test to assemble the cap that closed the hole to the handle. What is missing in this moment is the small recess to close the catch to the handle. This is why I use my pen to make this small recess. And very carefully I found the correct position. And I made this special hole to see if the shell is inside or not. And then I smooth the surface with glass paper. And with my sander I start to make the blade. And the blue helps a lot because you can see where you touch or where you don't touch the blade. I found that the thickness was very high, so I proceed also with my file and with the blue to cut the big amount of material. And very carefully with my file and with the help of the blue, I try to make the blade as better as I can. Using a file and a sandpaper give you a very nice result. And with 2 components glue and a simple plate, I finish the handle of my knife. I had only to wait 24 hours. And after I decided to make also the leather case. And to make this I choose a leather of 3 mm of thickness. Test the blade profile by bending the leather, and also I decide where to put the pins. But I think that it's better to call it rivets. And so I drill the holes for the rivets. And also the attack for the belt was very important, and so I bent the leather and I found the correct length. I decided for a black color, so I start to make the first end of this watercolor on the leather. This is because my idea was to use the black leather and the white rivets. And with a special punch, I applied the white rivet all around the point that I have signed with my pen. It was not very easy because we were very near to the maximum of the rivet length. And to make a round corner I use a glass, as you can see, and with the help of my cutter I try to make as best as I can the round corner. Also, the attack to close the knife was not so easy to make. Okay, it was my first time, but it was a great challenge. Also in this case I decide the length of the strap and I put with the punch the pressure rivets. The final result was not so bad. I have to say that I was very happy with this first result. But watching the clear leather I was not happy because it was too clear. And so I use coffee. This is Italian coffee. Of course to dark leather. And this is the final assembly of my blade. When I put all the parts together with the end-free screw for the handle in the front and the back, and after I test the cap and the empty shell. As you can see, it's a 28 caliber, and the cap works well, and also the latch works well. After closing, the cap remains in place and push the shell inside of the handle. This is the final result, also with the